everyone, welcome to my presentation for my final single sourcing project for 5387, Publications Management. Coming into this class, I thought I had a pretty decent grasp of HTML and CSS, but everything I knew was self-taught, so this class has definitely expanded my horizons and forced me out of my comfort zone. This class marks the first time I've attempted to use web production software such as ExpressionWeb and Camtasia, so it's really been a learning experience. Selecting my single sourcing project was actually pretty easy. I work in the franchise tax section at the Texas Comptroller's office, handling account maintenance and correspondence. Right at the beginning of the semester, my area manager cornered me and asked me to revise and update a quick reference guide. It was made back in 2005. I agreed to take on the project as long as I could use it for this class. This is my project vision statement. Essentially, my goals for this project were to provide a simpler, more interactive method of obtaining information for tax assistants, and a more structured, formatted way for them to contact my section, without us having to field as many phone calls. The two final deliverables for this project are a quick reference guide website, which is now hosted on our internal server, although for this class I've built a prototype on my freewebs.com website, and a print PDF quick reference guide. Now I'm going to take you on a quick tour of my website. My links were all determined by the biggest areas of concern that tax assistants reported on the survey I conducted. The main page here just provides basic information on what the project was and some additional contact information. It also provides a link to the PDF version of the website that tax assistants can access from this link. There's also a neat JavaScript function that allows tax assistants to search directly to Google, Yahoo, or MSN if they can't find what they need on the site. I'll take you through a couple of the pages. Anywhere that I cited a rule from the Texas Administrative Code, I provided a direct link that opens up in a new window. And whenever possible, I provided screenshots as well for easy reference. They also open in a separate window and can be enlarged. Also, whenever I referenced a form number, I provided a direct link to that form so tax assistants could see it and print it if necessary. Makes it easy to send to taxpayers. And of course, the most important part of the website is the Submit a Request page that allows tax assistants to send their requests directly to our department. They enter their name, the contact information for the taxpayer, and their own name and email address, as well as any additional comments. It also allows us to sort by the type of request it is for easier processing. Now back to the processes and strategies of the project. Slide 5 shows a table of the 5 phases of development as they related to my project. In the next few slides, I'll go through each phase individually. Phase 1, Planning. Understanding the goals and objectives. The main goals were to cut down on unnecessary phone calls between tax assistants and account maintenance, and to give tax assistants the tools to provide faster, better customer service. Defining the scope of the deliverables. This is actually something that became an issue later on in the project for me. The original scope was limited to just the quick reference guide and the PDF version, but our division's website was being developed simultaneously, and now it looks like I'll be updating that site to match the quick reference site. The project schedule was developed during an initial planning meeting with my management team and management from the tax assistance section. I created a Gantt chart, pictured on the right, to help organize my understanding of the time frame. The project was finished on time, so I guess the schedule worked. Acquiring people and resources. I wish I'd decided earlier on in the project to incorporate ExpressionWeb into the production. Then I could have downloaded the program earlier and begun learning it earlier. My team was primarily just me, but I did have some editing, content development, and proofing help from a senior examiner in my section. My understanding of my dependencies definitely changed from the beginning of the project. When I first started looking at dependencies way back in January, I knew tools experience would be a major dependency, and then I determined that audience understanding and review experience would also be major dependencies. After review, tools experience especially discovering my own limitations with hand-coding HTML and CSS, and having to learn new software, was definitely the most major dependency. I don't think audience understanding was much of an issue at all, since the website has turned out to be pretty simple and straightforward. My technical experience with the franchise tax law turned out to be a bigger issue than I realized. A lot of my content had to be revised and edited and re-edited to catch minor details and wording issues. Phase 2, Design. For the design phase, I conducted a survey of a stratified sample group from tax assistants. I included people of varying technical experience, ages, and varying length of service with the comptroller's office to determine what kinds of information would best meet the needs of the whole group. I also worked with the examiner who handles all section emails to determine what format would be most efficient for him when receiving email form submissions. I also developed a Photoshop rendering of what I intended the website to look like, although the final version changed drastically from my original concept, which is pictured on this slide. Phase 3, Development. My legacy content was a 30-plus page guide that had not been updated since around 2004. It's neither quick nor a legitimate reference anymore, so I had a lot of work to do. There was also a compressed version of the document that was about 5 pages, but it was just as out of date. I went through the document and selected the pertinent information, updated it based on House Bill 3, which was passed in 2008, and then separated it out into sections that might make good website pages. I then sent my revised document to my section manager, who sent it out to several section SMEs for input. I then updated the information to include the SME input and reviewed everything for grammar and content. Phase 4, Production. The production phase ended up taking more time than I expected. I started off attempting to design the entire site with just my knowledge of HTML and CSS. I used Castro's HTML, XHTML, and CSS book, as well as htmlgoodies.com and any YouTube tutorials I could find, but ran into a bit of a snag when I realized you couldn't target with pure CSS. That's when I downloaded Expression Web 3 and had to begin the process of learning a whole new program. I also ran into a major problem with PHP. Freewebs.com doesn't recognize PHP, so my submit form does not work in my prototype. I then tried activating my personal website through TTU, but could not get it to work despite 2 calls to TTU help. I even purchased a GoDaddy domain name, but I can't get it to connect with FileZilla. Fortunately, in the end, the form works on our internal server. Somewhere between production and evaluation, I discovered that the JPEGs I was using on the extensions page were barely legible when opened. It took an extra several hours to reconfigure and redesign those charts. Since the production phase ran over, the evaluation phase was cut a bit short by necessity. The project has been submitted to my managers for final approval, and I'm just waiting final approval to put everything up live on our internal server. Overall, I'm really pleased with how the project turned out. The site looks professional and is usable without being overly cluttered with information. I definitely plan to spend some more time learning Expression Web and maybe XML so I can automate processes better and be less reliant on hand coding on future projects. I will also allow more time in the project for contingencies like having to learn entirely new software programs. The biggest thing I refused to compromise on for quality assurance was the overall look of the site. I'm always pretty derisive when I find typos in print or in web content, so I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I think silly typos make things look sloppy, and I really wanted to avoid that. I had several different people test out the site as well to check, double check, and triple check that all of the links worked as they were supposed to work. I think the biggest thing I learned was that the semester was not as long as I thought it would be. I was lucky because I was able to work on this project both at work and at home, but even still, time became a factor towards the end. I also will definitely push myself beyond my comfort zone more and be more willing to learn more tools and software. And maybe one day, in a perfect world with no barriers, someone will hand me a nice big second monitor on which to practice. Thank you all for watching my presentation, and I'll take any questions in the Moo.